Chapter 21. Follow. Leo stood in the tunnel like it was something he did every day. "Leo!" I cried, grabbing him. How'd he get here? Had he followed me? And then I decided I didn't care because I had my little buddy. I hugged Leo tight, and he purred, his tail flapping lazily. And for a brief moment, everything seemed better in the world because I wasn't alone anymore. "I'm so glad to see you," I told him. He rubbed his nose against my chin, marking me as his. I was part of his pride, or maybe he was part of mine. "What are you doing here?" I asked him. He squirmed out of my grasp and leapt gracefully to the ground. "Meow," Leo said. "I'm hungry." "Yeah, me too," I said. "But I don't have any yums for you." He stalked down the tunnel. "Hey, wait for me," I called. I didn't have much choice but to follow my cat. At least he seemed to know where he was going. Once in a while, Leo looked back at me, and I saw his green eyes flash in the dark. And I'd thought he was an alien. How did he get into the tunnel? Was he chasing some of the mice that had gotten in the way? We walked for a while, and as we approached a curve, I saw a trickle of light spilling out. And then I saw it. A red, white, and blue flag hanging next to a door with a light. I'd made it to the French settlement. Leo leapt up on the landing and started meowing at the door. I didn't know what to do. Was it more dangerous to keep walking? Would the French attack me with their stick weapons if they saw me? Leo pawed at the door, meowing to be let in. Could I trust my cat? Surely he wouldn't lead me into a dangerous situation, right? I mean, after all, I'd been following him around my whole life. Leo said insistently. Let me in. "Okay," I told him. "I sure hope that you're right." I opened the door and followed Leo inside. Unlike at the Finnish settlement, there were clear signs of life everywhere, from bright daytime lighting to toasty warm air. And there was music, old-fashioned earth music, the kind with violins. If Albie was here, he would know what it was called. And as we got closer to the source of the music, I heard laughing and clapping, and someone shouted, "Bisou, bisou!" What did that mean? What was a bisou? Leo stopped in front of a door and meowed. I pushed it open and looked around in wonder, or maybe shock. Festive decorations hung everywhere. The room was full of grown-ups and kids wearing colored paper hats. A woman and a man were dancing in the middle of the floor, and the woman wore a long, fluttery white dress Flossie would have loved. The man spun and dipped the woman, and everybody clapped. Off to the side was a table piled high with all sorts of food, and in the center of it was the tallest cake that I had ever seen. It was 3 levels high, and on top were 2 tiny dolls. I walked right into the middle of a party? Across the room, my eyes met those of a little girl clutching a teddy bear. She tugged on the arm of the man next to her and pointed at me. His mouth dropped open, and one by one, people stopped talking to stare at me. And finally, everyone, even the couple who had stopped dancing, was staring as I stood there nervously with the music playing on. A woman stepped forward. Her gray hair was cut in a sharp bob. I couldn't look away from the ragged white scar on her forehead. That had to have hurt. "D'où viens-tu, mon cher?" she said, tilting her head questioningly. Bonjour," I said. She gave me an odd look. "Es-tu blessé?" But my brain short-circuited, and I couldn't remember any other French words. "Bonjour. As-tu des problèmes?" she asked, her gaze serious. "Bonjour." She shook her head as if mystified, and then, to my complete shock, she asked, "Are you American?" I nodded. "What is your name?" "Belle." "One last question," she said. I swallowed. This was it. This was going to be bad. "Do you like cake?" I smiled. The woman told me that her name was Commander Silvie Laurent. She sat me at a table and handed me a slice of cake and a glass of water. And then she sat down across from me. "Now tell me what happened, Belle," she said in a gentle voice. and it all spilled out of me in a rush. The mice, Phineas dying, the storm, the grown-ups being sick, running out of medicine, the response from Earth, everything falling apart, us going for help, Trey stuck in the train, following Leo. "What about Commander Sai?" she asked, looking at me steadily. "He's sick too," I said. Her expression didn't change. "I see." I took a bite of cake. It was chocolate and delicious. Probably the most delicious cake I'd ever eaten. "How long have you children been managing things on your own?" she asked. A few weeks, I think. Hey, this is really good cake." Her eyes closed briefly. "You don't have to worry anymore, mon cher," she said, and it sounded like a promise. "We'll take care of everything." I watched in a daze as she calmly gave orders, organizing a party to take medicine to our settlement and another group to rescue Trey. A girl with 2 braids walked over, carrying Leo. "Is this your cat?" she asked, but all I could do was stare at her hair. It was red. "Is it real?" I whispered. She scrunched her eyes. "Is what real?" "Your hair," I said. "Of course it's real," she huffed. I shook my head in amazement. Flossie was right. "So is this your cat?" she asked me. "Yes, this is Leo," I said. "Do you feed him?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "Well, why?" "He's been coming here for months, and we give him food," she explained. "We were wondering who he belonged to and why they were not feeding him." "He just likes to eat," I explained. "I'm Amelie," she said. "What's your name?" "Belle," I said. "Are you really an American? I've never seen one," she admitted. "Yes," I said. "What are you?" "Oh, French, of course," she said, like I should know. She reminded me a little of Vera. A boy with straight black hair joined us. He couldn't take his eyes off Leo. "That's your cat, then." "I told you, Wei," Amelie said in an important voice. "That cat belongs to the Americans." "You don't have any cats?" I asked him. "Well, the Chinese have chickens," Amelie said, like it was perfectly obvious, and then I remembered the eggs. Wei said, "you don't look like what I imagined Americans would look like." "Really?" He nodded. "They say the Americans always wear their uniforms." "Oh, just Sai," I said. "He's our commander." "This party is boring," Amelie complained. "It's true," Wei agreed, and then he smiled at me. "You're the most exciting thing that's happened." "All they've been doing is bisou bisou," Amelie said. "What's bisou bisou?" I asked. "Kiss kiss," she said, making a kissy face. "Bleh." What is this party for?" I asked. "It's a wedding," Amelie said. "Brigitte, who's from our settlement, is marrying Oscar, who's Finnish." "The Finnish settlement? Does that mean that they haven't been eaten or abducted by aliens?" I asked. Amelie gave me a funny look. "Aliens? Are Americans crazy?" "You don't understand. We were just at the Finnish settlement and no one was there," I told her. "That's because they're all here for the wedding," Wei explained. "Oh," I said. "Do you like ping pong?" Emily asked me. "What's ping pong?" "You don't know what ping pong is?" Wei asked. I shook my head. "Come on," Emily said in a bossy voice. "We will show you." Everywhere I looked, there was something to see. Colorful posters, tiny blinking lights that hung from the ceiling. They even had real musical instruments. Albie was going to explode when he saw them. "Is that a violin?" I asked. Amelie nodded. "Do you play?" I shook my head. "Well, then you're lucky," she said. "I am forced to practice 3 days a week. It is the bane of my existence." Amelie opened a door, and I followed her and Wei into a room where a bunch of kids were standing around. In the middle of the room was a large rectangular table, and it had a net like the one at the Finnish settlement. A boy and a girl were hitting a small white ball back and forth with the plate things. The ball bounced over the net. "That's ping pong," Wei said. So I guess the table in the Finnish settlement wasn't for eating. "Everyone," Amelie called, "this is Belle. He is a real live American, and he is the owner of the cat." The blonde boy at the table gasped. That's your cat? You should feed him." "We do feed him," I said. "He's just always hungry." That's Tavi, Amelie told me. He's from the Finnish settlement. He loves cats. I was pretty sure I'd been in this kid's room. Do you want to play? The cat-loving boy asked me. I don't know how, I admitted. It's easy, he said. I'll teach you. It wasn't hard to learn, and it was a lot of fun. We played game after game, switching partners, sometimes even playing teams of two. Amelie introduced me to all of the other kids, and I was surprised to learn that they were all from different countries. France, Russia, China, Finland. Do you guys do this a lot? I asked. Play ping pong? Wei asked. I struggled to explain. No, I mean like get together with the other countries. Of course, Emily said. I would go bonkers if I was here all the time. Do you have any idea how boring that would be? Also, I'd have to practice the violin. Can you imagine anything worse? Besides, Tavi said, the Russian settlement has the best chocolate candies on Mars. There's nothing more important than candy. It was hard to argue with that.